Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Woohoon. God level selection for instant upgrades. Chapter 101. The panicked three people fought off the remaining soul beasts while rushing out of the forest. Although most of the soul beasts were attracted, after all, there were more wolves than meat, so there were still many soul beasts persistently attacking them. The three of them fought desperately, but they actually fought a bloody path. Seeing that there were fewer and fewer soul beasts, they gradually saw the possibility of survival and couldn't help but fight harder. Suddenly, while the bald man and Li Shuang were fighting hard, Scarface let out a miserable cry. The two of them hurriedly looked back, only to see him being held up by something and quickly entering the jungle. Scar, the bald man yelled, going to save him, but was stopped by Li Shuang. In such an environment where you can't see your fingers, if you rush to save others, you can only accompany yourself in it. Leave quickly, or we will die if we don't leave, Li Shuang said without any hesitation, hoping that Scar could drag out the monster for a little longer. The bald man was frightened at this time. In such an environment, he naturally believed whatever the people next to him said, so he had no choice but to continue to advance with Li Shuang. The two of them walked to a place, and Li Shuang suddenly screamed, but he tripped over a pit under his feet. He was considered a pretty good expert, but he was so panicked that he could even fall down in such a pit. Damn it, it's really leaking and it rains all night long. Bald head, let's go quickly. Li Shuang was about to move on, but suddenly realized something was wrong. Bald head. Bald head. The deserted forest looked eerie and scary. Li Shuang also felt deeply frightened at this time. His hands kept shaking and he could hardly hold his Wuhun Qingzi sword. Suddenly there was a sound of breaking through the air. Li Shuang subconsciously raised his sword to block it, but he did not expect that the opponent's target was his sword. He was suddenly hit in the hand, blood spattered everywhere, and the sword in his hand fell to the ground. After losing his weapon, Li Shuang hurriedly tried to pick it up, but when he bent down, he found a huge animal claw appearing in front of him, holding down his green sword. Li Shuang raised his head tremblingly, and what he saw was a completely black leopard. Its soft fur completely blended into the night, like a ferocious beast born specifically for the night. The black panther had no expression on its face, but the dripping blood at the corner of its mouth and the ferocious murderous intent in its eyes told Li Shuang that its purpose was very simple, to kill Li Shuang. You, don't come here. Go away, go away. Li Shuang, who was extremely frightened, completely forgot that the sword at Black Panther's feet was not an ordinary sword, but his own martial spirit. He fell to the ground like an ordinary person and kept retreating, using only his hands to resist weakly. Such a person, not to mention a ferocious spirit beast, even an ordinary beast can easily take his life. Roar! Black Panther roared and pounced on Li Shuang, aiming for his neck. For a top hunter like it, there is absolutely no chance of missing such an attack. Qi Ling, who was hiding in the dark, had been watching all this. To be precise, he was watching this shadow demon leopard. From the moment it appeared, Qi Ling knew that his goal had been achieved. Well, the attributes are just right, the characteristics are quite suitable, and the quality is beyond words. It's a first-class thing. Qi Ling looked at the shadow demon leopard and said, the only flaw is that it seems to be too old. Oh, forget it, let's catch her first. If that doesn't work, she can also be used as Zhu Zuqing's fourth soul ring. She is completely qualified. Therefore, Qi Ling no longer hesitated and walked out of the darkness with great momentum. The moment Qi Ling stopped hiding his aura, the shadow leopard had already noticed his presence, and the muscles in his body were tense, ready to deliver a fatal blow at any time. But it's a pity that Qi Ling is not one of those frightened soul masters. If Li Shuang and the bald man performed normally, they might not lose to this leopard. Unfortunately, their mental quality was too poor to pass their level. Little kitten, be obedient. My brother will be very gentle and won't hurt you. Qi Ling said, anyway, you killed someone, so it doesn't count as unjust. You can go with peace of mind. Zhu Zuqing, who was guarding the bonfire, was staring at the bonfire in trance when he suddenly said, hey, and then saw Qi Ling walking out of the forest covered in blood and carrying a huge black panther on his back. Bang! The huge black panther was thrown to the ground by him, raising a cloud of dust. Qi Ling also sat aside and said, this guy is really heavy. I am exhausted. Are you not injured? Zhu Zuqing asked. No, all the blood belongs to this guy, and some of it belongs to those guys. The guys Qi Ling mentioned were naturally referring to Li Shuang and the others. Zhu Zuqing listened to Qi Ling's words without any doubts and said, as long as it's not injured, if it's injured, I don't know how to treat it. Qi Ling asked curiously, Zuqing, aren't you surprised, where have those people gone? In other words, have I done anything to those people? It's not necessary. They are completely meaningless to me. Zhu Zuqing said simply, and I also believe that you, Qi Ling, will not do meaningless killings. That's true. Qi Ling shrugged indifferently, those guys have played their due role. You see, this shadow leopard is a gift they gave you. Hearing the name of the shadow demon leopard, Zhu Zuqing's eyes suddenly lit up. Since Qi Ling said so, then this shadow demon leopard must be the soul ring he found for himself, which made her couldn't help but look forward to it. All the conditions of this guy are perfect for you, but the age limit is too much, so I want to keep it first and then use it as your fourth soul ring. This is only suitable, Qi Ling said. Zhu Zuqing looked at the shadow leopard and asked, how old is it? Zuqing, don't think about it. If it's not too extreme, I will definitely let you try it. Qi Ling said helplessly, this guy's lifespan is more than 5,000 years. 5,000 years, do you know what this concept is? Xiao San absorbed a 2,000-year-old man-faced demon spider and almost killed him. However, this shadow leopard is no worse than the man-faced demon spider in terms of ferocity and evil. It even has features that the man-faced demon spider has never had before. Cunning to possess. It is simply impossible to absorb it. It is simply a gamble of a narrow escape, no, a lifetime of death. But, there is still a possibility of a lifetime, isn't it? Zhu Zuqing looked at Qi Ling with burning eyes, as if he was speaking with his own eyes. Qi Ling, you must have a way, right? Qi Ling must have a way. This seems to have become a consensus reached by everyone at Shrek when they encounter difficulties, as if it has become an iron rule. In fact, Qi Ling did have a way to let Zhu Zuqing absorb this soul ring, but he didn't want Zhu Zuqing to try it because that method was too painful and had a terrifyingly high failure rate. But who would have thought that when Qi Ling explained this to Zhu Zuqing, she actually said, I'm not afraid, Qi Ling. You know, as long as I can become stronger, I am not even afraid of death, so how can I be afraid of pain? But, Zuqing, this is not a simple pain, but a real extreme pain. Qi Ling couldn't bear to say, you know, the reason why people can't absorb soul rings that transcend years is because their bodies have limited endurance, cannot hold so much soul power. So in order for you to have conditions that can accommodate these soul powers, we need to create conditions. And the method is, I need to break all the bones in your body one by one, and then let you absorb the soul ring. In rebirth from the ashes. Only in this way can you complete the absorption. Breaking all the bones in the body one by one, just hearing it is enough to give a person a toothache. Even Zhu Zuqing, who has always been fearless, hesitated after hearing this condition because she didn't know whether she could survive it. Qi Ling, can I ask you a question? Zhu Zuqing asked at this time. Just ask. Have you ever experienced such pain when you became stronger? Chillington was at a loss for words. Although he did rely on the system to become stronger along the way, his efforts were by no means less than anyone else. Just talking about the cultivation of the vacuum body, the pain he endured is enough to compare with it. Looking at Qi Ling's expression, Zhu Zuqing already had the answer, so she made up her mind and said, in that case, Qi Ling, please do it for me. Qi Ling had no reason to reject Zhu Zuqing. After all, you can't say that only I, Qi Ling, can do it, and you, Zhu Zuqing, must not be able to, right? So under Zhu Zuqing's repeated insistence, Qi Ling had no choice but to agree to her. Before taking action, Qi Ling specially gave Zhu Zuqing a special medicine that could greatly alleviate her pain. Does this medicine have any side effects? Zhu Zuqing asked Qi Ling while holding the small pill. It's a medicine that's 3 parts poisonous, let alone this kind of medicine. Qi Ling said helplessly, but this kind of medicine can greatly reduce your pain and thus increase your success rate. Qi Ling, do you also need to take this kind of medicine when you were practicing? Zhu Zuqing asked directly. Healington was speechless. Naturally, he didn't use it when he was practicing. The final result, of course, was that Zhu Zuqing returned the medicine to Qi Ling, and Qi Ling helplessly began to break all the bones in Zhu Zuqing's body. When Qi Ling started to break Zhu Zuqing's first bone, the unimaginable severe pain immediately made Zhu Zuqing scream. Birds and beasts in all directions were frightened and ran away, which showed its power. Zuqing, it's too late to stop now, otherwise once you start, you won't give up halfway. Qi Ling said unbearably. Continue, continue. Zhu Zuqing said stubbornly. Qi Ling, I beg you, continue. Qi Ling sighed, knowing that nothing he said was of any use, so he had no choice but to continue, breaking Zhu Zuqing's bones one by one. When all the bones in his body were broken one by one, Zhu Zuqing no longer knew how many times he had fainted from the pain. He only knew that the branch he had bitten in his mouth had changed to the 108th. Qi Ling, did I succeed? Zhu Zuqing asked Qi Ling in exhaustion. Successful. Qi Ling felt powerless at this time and could only say in admiration, Zhu Zuqing, you are truly the most perverted and crazy woman I have ever seen. Thank you for the compliment. Zhu Zuqing actually smiled at this moment. His smile was so coquettish and beautiful that Qi Ling felt as if his heartbeat had stopped for a beat. Now that the most difficult step has been completed, the rest will become much easier. Because Zhu Zuqing could not move a finger at this time, Qi Ling held the knife with her hand and ended the life of the shadow leopard. Then, a dark purple soul ring appeared on the body of the shadow demon leopard. The color was crystal clear, like a gem. After Zhu Zuqing put her hand on the soul ring, she began to absorb the soul that belonged to her ring. At this time, a purple protective shield suddenly appeared around her body, enveloping her whole body in it, suspended in midair, and swayed slightly up and down. Even with Qi Ling's knowledge, he had never seen such a scene, but he thought that when Tang San absorbed the soul ring of the man-faced demon spider, he had a similar vision before. Wrapping himself in spider silk, Qi Ling was temporarily relieved. This wait lasted for a whole day and night. It was not until nightfall the next day that the purple energy shield surrounding Zhu Zuqing made a crisp sound and a crack opened in the middle. Then, Zhu Zuqing suddenly burst out of the energy shield like a chick hatched from an egg shell. Qi Ling hurriedly reached out to catch her and held her in his arms. And those purple energy shields seemed to have turned into a burst of energy and reinvested into Zhu Zuqing's body. Compared with before absorbing the soul ring, Zhu Zuqing did not change much, except that his skin became fairer, his body shape became more proportionate, and he seemed to have grown taller. In addition, I don't know if it was Qi Ling's illusion, but Zhu Zuqing's originally astonishing size seemed to become more and more turbulent at this time, which made Qi Ling swallow involuntarily. Really, I wonder if this girl will fall in love with the first person she sees after hatching, like what is written in those bloody novels. Qi Ling thought boredly. With a slight groan, Zhu Zuqing slowly opened his eyes. Qi Ling asked with concern, Zuqing, how are you feeling? Is there anything uncomfortable? Zhu Zuqing felt his physical condition and said, no, I have never felt so good. I can feel a novel power filling my body. It's just, Qi Ling. Zhu Zuqing blushed and said, can you, let me put on my clothes first? Only then did Qi Ling remember that Zhu Zuqing had taken off all his clothes before and was being held in his arms in an extremely shameful manner. Fortunately, Qi Ling was thick-skinned. At this time, Fei Fei did not let go of Zhu Zuqing. Instead, he hugged her even tighter and quietly moved his hand up and down. It's not like I haven't seen it before. Zuqing, why are you so embarrassed? If it were anyone else, Zhu Zuqing would chase him to the ends of the earth no matter what. But since it was Qi Ling, Zhu Zuqing's face would only turn redder. Just when Zhu Zuqing was feeling uneasy and shy and didn't know what to say, Qi Ling suddenly put her down and found a piece of clothing to put on her. Okay, let's take a look first. You almost gave up your life and experienced so much pain to get the soul ring. Qi Ling said, if this thing is not powerful, I will not be sorry for the sins you have suffered. After being reminded by Qi Ling, Zhu Zuqing also remembered that the most important thing now was to confirm his soul ring and soul skills. The 5,000-year-old top-level shadow demon leopard soul ring must be very powerful. Ghost Civet. Possessed. Along with Zhu Zuqing's martial soul possession, 3 soul rings, 2 yellow and 1 purple, rose from her feet and hovered around her body. Zuqing, how could this 3rd soul ring of yours? Qi Ling looked at Zhu Zuqing's third soul ring and couldn't help but widen his eyes in surprise. Although Qi Ling had thought that Zhu Zuqing's third soul ring might be different, as it was a super-level absorbed soul ring, he did not expect that her soul ring would be so unique. The purple soul ring is not just a faint halo like others, but instead seems to be a crystal, reflecting the dazzling purple light. Qi Ling couldn't help but reach out and touch the magical soul ring, and found that it only looked like it had an entity, but in fact it was still a void. Zhu Zuqing looked at her third soul ring with a puzzled expression. Obviously she didn't know why it became like this. Qi Ling frowned. He suddenly remembered that he seemed to have seen information about such a crystal soul ring in the information provided by the system, so he closed his eyes and searched in his mind. That's it. Zuqing, you've made a lot of money this time. Qi Ling opened his eyes with a smile after searching for the information he wanted. This is an extremely rare amethyst soul ring. Its treasure level is, it can even be compared with Xiao San's external soul bone. Amethyst soul ring. Zhu Zuqing read the name silently and asked curiously, why does my soul ring become like this? Does it do me any good? The benefits are huge. Qi Ling said with a smile, let me explain to you first why your soul ring became an amethyst soul ring. In order to form such an amethyst soul ring, the conditions are very demanding. The soul beast that must be absorbed first must have a compatibility of more than 99% with your own martial soul, Qi Ling said. Your nether civet comes from the same sect as the shadow leopard. Not only do their attributes, species, and abilities match very well, but they also have some kind of magical origin. That's why we can achieve this condition. And the other condition is even more difficult. Keelington paused and said, that is, the life of the soul ring you have absorbed exceeds the maximum number of years you can absorb by more than 3 times. More than 3 times. Zhu Zuqing pondered. Indeed, such a choice is tantamount to seeking death. If I were asked to choose again, I might not have the courage. Yes, it is because of such harsh requirements that it is said to be the ultimate soul ring that cannot exist, even comparable to 100,000-year soul ring. Qi Ling said, and its most direct benefit is that it brings the soul skills given to you or 3. Zhu Zuqing was stunned for a moment. Then the amethyst soul ring started to rotate, attached to his body, and activated his third soul skill. Really, Qi Ling, I do have 3 third soul skills. It's really amazing, Zhu Zuqing said happily. The third soul skill, Nether Raid. During the charge process, you can launch a sprint instantly, and hide your whole body in a shadow substance, avoiding all damage received, and cannot be locked. The third soul skill, Netherworld Thrust, which greatly enhances the power and effect of the first soul skill, and obtains a second thrust, causing the second stage of damage to the enemy. The third soul skill, Amethyst Shield, forms an amethyst shield around the body to resist the enemy's attacks until the upper limit is reached. Seeing the 3 skills that Zhu Zuqing had obtained, Qi Ling could only comment that they were extremely powerful. This was the ability that an agility attack soul master should possess. And because of the huge increase in soul power brought by the amethyst soul ring, Zhu Zuqing's soul power level has now risen to level 32. She is now truly Shrek's second highest soul power person. Now that he has obtained Zhu Zuqing's soul ring, Qi Ling must let Zhu Zuqing return to Shrek Academy as soon as possible. If he remembers correctly, the plot will soon be the one where Huangdo Academy comes to challenge and the Shrek 7 Devils take on the challenge. Qi Ling was not worried about the match with Huangdo, because originally the Shrek 7 monsters would have won the match under Tang San's command, not to mention that Zhu Zuqing had made such great progress now, the Shrek 7 monsters would it can be said that the monsters' strength has greatly increased. The minimum number of people in a team battle is 7, so without Zhu Zuqing, the match between Shrek 7 monsters and Huangdo cannot start. It is too late for Zhu Zuqing to go back now. What about you? Won't you go back with me? Zhu Zuqing asked curiously. I will stay here for a while, Qi Ling said, because I also have to obtain my third soul ring. At this time, Qi Ling also felt that his soul power was about to break through. In order to ensure that the balance of his martial soul was not broken, Qi Ling had to obtain the Blood Demon Emperor's third soul ring as soon as possible. And more importantly, the spirit beasts that attacked at night yesterday were obviously well organized and had someone directing them behind the scenes. Even the powerful shadow leopard is just one of that existence's subordinates. Qi Ling estimates that it should be some kind of powerful soul beast, and it has extremely high wisdom to organize these soul beasts and work for himself. Used. After explaining the reason to Zhu Zuqing went on the road alone. With her current speed and soul power, she should be able to get back to Shrek Academy in less than half a day. Qi Ling planned to wait until night fell and use the method he used to deal with Li Shuang and the others yesterday to attract these soul beasts out again, so that he could follow the clues and find out the powerful soul beasts hidden behind them. However, this time it was Qi Ling himself who was used as bait. It depends on whether you can withstand the attack of the Taida beasts. After all, night is their home field. As the moon hangs high in the sky, night has come completely. The soul beasts who were gentle during the day all return to their nests and no longer move around at will, because they know that the starry forest at night is far more dangerous than during the day. After Qi Ling sprinkled the medicine powder on his body to attract soul beasts, he began to wander in the forest. He could feel that the soul beasts were constantly attracted to him, looking at him with hunting eyes, and treating him as a delicious meal for them. Really, I hope I won't follow in the footsteps of Li Shuang and the others. Qi Ling laughed at himself. If that happens, it will be too embarrassing. Pa. After kicking away an unknown ugly little soul beast, Qi Ling muttered to himself in confusion, where have all these soul beasts gone? Am I so unattractive? Is it possible that melancholy handsome boys like me are no longer popular these days? It's impossible. It was completely different from Li Shuang's situation yesterday. Even though Qi Ling had used the beast summoning powder, the number of soul beasts that came to attack him was still pitiful, making him even wonder if his medicine powder had expired. It doesn't seem right. These soul beasts are not as organized and disciplined as yesterday. They are more like lone rangers. Qi Ling analyzed, so, the mastermind behind the scenes has no intention of doing anything to me. Did you take action? If this is the case, Qi Ling feels that there are only two possibilities. One is that the soul beast was scared away by him, which is obviously impossible. After all, Qi Ling does not have such a terrifying deterrent power. Another possibility is that these soul beasts found a target that was more valuable than themselves, so they gave up on themselves and chose to attack other targets. And if this is the case, no matter what the situation, Qi Ling must find the target of their attack as soon as possible. This is an opportunity for him. The smell of blood. At this moment, Qi Ling frowned and smelled a smell of blood. Judging from the direction and distance from which the bloody smell came, there is no doubt that a considerable amount of blood can produce such an effect. It is very likely that this is the target Qi Ling is looking for. So Qi Ling followed the smell of blood and searched for the source. As the smell of blood became stronger and stronger, the sound of fighting gradually came, accompanied by bursts of yelling. Qi Ling raised his eyebrows. These soul beasts were attacking a woman. Could it be that these days, even soul beasts are so perverted? There shouldn't be any scenes inappropriate for children, right? And when Qi Ling actually saw the fighting scene there, he realized that this scene was indeed not suitable for children. It was too bloody and violent. Countless soul beasts seemed to be desperate for their lives. They charged frantically like one person, but they couldn't get close to her at all, so they were all killed on the spot by her. And that person who looked like the god of war was actually a girl with red twin tails and a slightly childish look on her face. Judging from her age, she should be younger than Zhu Zuqing, the youngest among the Shrek 7 monsters. But even though she has an extremely cute appearance and a slim figure, the look on her face is one of being completely intoxicated with the excitement of fighting. Not to mention her superb combat skills, she used a simple spear, which truly means, like an arm and a finger. The spear was like an extension of her limbs, and every attack was extremely smooth. People are amazed by it. Although he doesn't know who she is, Qi Ling can be sure that her fighting skills are the highest among the people he has ever seen. This is not just a talent, but more like an instinct. Seeing their companions dying one after another, those spirit beasts seemed to know that if they continued like this, their sacrifices would be in vain, so at a certain moment, these spirit beasts stopped all attacks as if they had discussed it in advance. In the next second, all the soul beasts launched their most powerful attacks together, including those from the sky, from the ground, and in midair. It can be said that it was a 360-degree attack with no blind spots. Faced with such an attack, no one could deal with it calmly, but the girl just smiled, slightly retracted the spear in her hand, and when she swung it out again, a clear blade shadow seemed to cut through the sky, taking away all the souls. The life of the beast. Heaven and earth shatterer, killing all the soul beasts with one blow, covering all the space around him, such incredible fighting skills, Qi-Ling asked himself that he couldn't do it. So he walked out of the darkness with wonder and admiration, applauding and said, "What a skill! This kind of skill is really..." "Who?" The girl screamed and stabbed Qi-Ling with the spear in her hand, scaring Qi-Ling into a cold sweat. Fortunately, with his fiery eyes, ordinary frontal attacks could no longer affect Qi-Ling. The girl's swift blow was dodged by Qi-Ling by a hair, and only took away a few strands of his hair. "Don't be nervous, I'm a human," Qi-Ling said hurriedly, fearing that if he spoke too late, he would be stabbed into pieces by this girl. Facts have proved that his explanation is necessary. The girl's spear, which was about to take action again, stopped at this time and did not attack him again. "Who are you? Why are you here?" the girl asked suspiciously. After all, this kind of place does not look like a place where normal people would come. "What about you? Why are you here?" Qi-Ling smiled and threw the question back to her. "HMPH. Forget it if you don't want to tell me. Anyway, you are not one of those monsters, so you probably don't want to come and eat me." The girl snorted coldly. "As for what other purposes you have, it has nothing to do with me. You are not interested in me, but I am very interested in you." Qi-Ling said with a smile, "A girl as cute as you, with such good skills, can't be practicing here, right? Are you looking for what is it?" Hearing Qi-Ling praising herself, the girl's face suddenly turned red. "I won't be happy if you say I'm cute or something." "Ah, this girl is simply terrifying." Qi-Ling defined this girl in her heart. After repeating her question again, the girl seemed to suddenly wake up and said, "It doesn't matter if I tell you. I'm looking for a spirit beast called the 100-Eyed Demon King, so I came so late." "Huh, why are you looking for this kind of soul beast? Do you also need its soul ring?" Qi-Ling said. "Presumably, this 100-Eyed Demon King is the mastermind behind controlling these soul beasts, and is his target." And this girl was so determined to find the 100-Eyed Demon King that she even risked her own life. The most likely reason was that she needed his soul ring. But this time Qi-Ling guessed wrong, and the girl shook her head and said, "No, I want to look for the 100-Eyed Demon King just because my friend told me that this guy is very bad and has killed many soul beasts. If we don't destroy it, there will never be peace in the Stardew Forest. Besides, I already have enough soul rings and I don't need its soul rings at all. If you don't believe me, look at it." As the girl spoke, 3 soul rings emerged from under her feet and floated around her body. When Qi-Ling saw this scene, he opened his mouth in surprise. It was not because of the identity of the girl Hun Sect. Although Hun Sect at this age was indeed a rare genius, it was not enough to surprise Qi-Ling. What really surprised him was the colors of these 3 soul rings. Purple, black. These are 2,000-year soul rings, paired with a 10,000-year soul ring, and a super-level soul ring like Qi-Ling himself. This soul ring. Qi-Ling frowned, and after thinking about it carefully, he asked, "By the way, can I ask, what is your martial soul?" "Okay," the girl said straightforwardly, "it's just that my martial spirit seems to be very special, and none of them have heard of it. My martial spirit is called God of War." "Really? It is as expected. It's no wonder that ordinary people don't know the origin of this martial spirit, because this girl's martial spirit, like Qi-Ling, is one of the 8 demons and 8 gods recorded in ancient times. And her martial soul is the god of fighting, one of the 8 gods." "I see, no wonder you have such a matching soul ring." Qi-Ling suddenly realized, "My situation happens to be similar to yours." With that said, Qi-Ling summoned the Dragon Emperor spirit, and 3 spirit rings, 2 purple and 1 black, wrapped around him, exactly the same as the girl. After seeing that Qi-Ling actually had the same soul ring configuration as herself, with 2 purple and 1 black soul rings, the girl was stunned for a while, and then became happy. "Oh my god, I finally meet someone who is like me, that's great," the girl said happily. "I always thought I was somehow different from others, but it turns out I'm not." Qi-Ling smiled helplessly. "It seems that this situation is really because you are a little different from others. Just like standing out from the crowd, geniuses are always particularly awkward among mortals." "That's right." The girl seemed to suddenly think of something. stretched out her hand to Qi Ling and said, "My name is Bei Na, what's your name?" Qi Ling had nothing to hide, so he generously stretched out his hand to hold Bei Na's hand and said, "My name is Qi Ling." The two of them held their hands together, but Qi Ling felt strong pressure from Bei Na's slender hands. He couldn't help but look at her face and found that her big, watery eyes were full of competitiveness. Desire to win. I see. This girl must have been invincible for a long time just like me, and she must have suffered from not having a matching opponent. There is no way, when a person is strong enough, he will taste the feeling of loneliness. But Bei Na's abacus was obviously wrong. She could compete with Qi Ling in anything, but if she was competing in strength, it would be purely for bullying. The Dragon Emperor has never lost to any existence in terms of strength and destructive power. So Qi Ling calmly and secretly increased his strength. The strength used by the two of them holding hands together was already a very terrifying figure. I am afraid that no soul master can bear it. After a while, Bei Na silently withdrew her little hand, put it behind her back and shook it quietly, saying, "Hey, Qi Ling, you are so powerful. If you have a chance, come and have a fight with me." Quote. Qi Ling secretly smiled in his heart, but although Bei Na suffered a loss in the strength duel, the outcome is never purely based on strength, so he also said, "Okay, I am also looking forward to that time is coming. But now, let's go look for the 100-eyed demon king first." Qi Ling said, "To be honest, the purpose of my coming here this time is actually it. I specially selected it to use it as my third soul ring. It's here." "Huh, third soul ring, but doesn't yours already have a third soul ring?" Bei Na asked strangely. "Because I still have a martial spirit, and I also need to absorb soul rings," Qi Ling said, putting away the Divine Dragon Emperor's martial spirit, and summoned the Blood Demon Emperor's martial spirit. The two purple soul rings also looked very amazing. But when Bei Na saw Qi Ling's Blood Demon Emperor spirit, she frowned and said, "Qi Ling, this spirit of yours feels so evil." The 8 gods and 8 demonic spirits are originally opposites to each other, just like the relationship between justice and evil. This has nothing to do with stance, but an instinctive reaction. If Qi Ling hadn't demonstrated his Dragon Emperor martial spirit first, I'm afraid Bei Na's favorability towards him would have dropped to its lowest point at this time. Fortunately, now that she has a preconceived notion, Bei Na has already regarded Qi Ling as a friend. Now looking at Qi Ling's Blood Demon Emperor spirit, it's like you find that your friend has a certain shortcoming. Even if you don't like it, you will turn against each other. Are you just going to add a soul ring to this martial soul? Bei Na said, "That's awesome. So Qi Ling, you have a second martial soul. Then when you absorb the soul ring, won't you be able to become more powerful? Stronger? Almost, it should be 20% stronger than now." Qi Ling estimated that after all, a 10,000-year soul ring is a big improvement even for himself. Of course, this is only for Qi Ling. After all, he has too much power, and martial arts is just one of them. If it were anyone else, if he had gained a soul ring and advanced to a higher level, his strength would have improved by at least more than 90%. Otherwise, the strength suppression between the great realms of soul masters would not be so obvious, and the further into the later stages, the wider the gap would become. "Really? That's great. Then let's quickly defeat the 100-eyed demon king," Bei Na said happily. "I must fight you in your strongest state, that will be fun. By that time, you may not be able to beat me, so that doesn't matter." Qi Ling asked. "It doesn't matter. I don't fight with people because I want to win," Bei Na said with a smile. "Although winning is the best, if you can fight happily, it is more important than anything else." Sure enough, Bei Na is worthy of being the god of fighting. Bei Na's aggressive will perfectly explains the meaning of these two words. Unlike Zhu Zuqing, who is only determined to win by any means necessary, she completely enjoys fighting and enjoys it. Fighting mania. At this point, Qi Ling also understood why he still couldn't catch Bei Na even though he used the beast summoning powder. Just imagine who could still sit still when being targeted by such a fighting madman. During the conversation between the two, many soul beasts had already surrounded them. At this time, they could no longer bear it and pounced on the two of them. "Be careful," Bei Na yelled, planning to go into battle with her spear and kill them all at once like before. But if women always steal his limelight, wouldn't Qi Ling lose face? The Blood Demon Emperor's first soul skill, Blood Demon's 100 split claws. Qi Ling waved his hand, and instantly hundreds of claw shadows covered the sky, hitting every soul beast that rushed towards them, leaving several scars on their bodies. These wounds looked very shallow and were not fatal at all. These soul beasts would even cause more serious injuries by accident, and they were not even considered serious injuries. But what is surprising is that these soul beasts seemed to have lost all their strength and fell to the ground exhausted, gasping for air. Correspondingly, Qi Ling said to Bei Na full of energy, "Okay, I almost know the location of the 100-eyed Demon King, let's go." "Huh, how did you know?" Bei Na asked in surprise. She was completely clueless now. Secret," Qi Ling said, giving it away. It wasn't that Qi Ling didn't want to tell Bei Na, it was because the way he obtained this information was a little too unspeakable. The second passive skill of the Blood Demon Emperor's talent, Emperor Detection. As long as you absorb enough soul power from the opponent, you can detect the information you want through the information contained in the soul power. The more soul power you absorb, the higher the accuracy of this information. Qi Ling had almost drained the soul power from all the soul beasts just now, so although their IQs were limited, quantitative changes led to qualitative changes, and Qi Ling still obtained the accurate location information of the 100-eyed Demon King. When the two came to a dark and narrow cave, Bei Na said hesitantly, "Qi Ling, are you really sure? The scourge of the Star Doe Forest, the 100-eyed Demon King, is in this cave. Isn't that right? Is it just a mouse hole?" "Believe me, that's right," Qi Ling said with certainty. "It is precisely because this cave is so small, and its real hiding place is located very deep underground, that it has been able to live in peace for such a long time. It's a disaster. But, this hole is so small, how should we get in?" Bei Na hesitated. "Should we dig it out?" "Dig? Do you know how deep this hole is? By the time you finish digging, it will be dawn, and the 100-eyed Demon Lord will have enough time to build another nest." Qi Ling said helplessly. "Then what do we do?" "There is only one way," Qi Ling said firmly. "Let's climb in." "Climb in?" Bei Na's face suddenly turned pale. No matter what, she was a girl, and she definitely couldn't accept being covered in dirt like this. "What's wrong? Are you afraid? Do you think you should give up because of such a small difficulty?" Qi Ling said with a smile. Who said I'm scared? I'm not scared." Although Bei Na held her head high and pretended not to care, the expression on her face betrayed her true thoughts. However, no matter what, her pride as a fighting god would not allow Bei Na to give up halfway, so the two of them climbed into the cave one after the other. When they finally arrived at the cave, Bei Na realized that it was much deeper than what they saw from the outside. It took them 15 minutes to crawl all the way before they reached the spacious area. It was a fool's errand to dig through it. The soul beasts in the cave obviously didn't expect that someone would come here. After all, in such a deep place, powerful soul beasts cannot enter if they don't want to, and the only ones who can get in are weak soul beasts. And here, the two also met their target this time, the 100-eyed Demon King. Just like its name, the 100-eyed Demon King is a huge fleshy ball-shaped soul beast. Its ugly body is covered with countless eyes, which are half open and half closed. It is very scary. Seeing someone coming in, the 100-eyed Demon King became obviously panicked. As soon as his countless eyes opened, they suddenly emitted countless strange lights. When Qi Ling was illuminated by this light, he suddenly felt as if there was something that wanted to break through his mental protection and penetrate into his brain. This must be the ability of the 100-eyed Demon King. He uses his countless eyes to release extremely powerful spiritual attacks. Once the attack is successful, he can do whatever he wants to the opponent. Those organized soul beasts must have been illuminated by its evil eye and thus controlled by it. Being able to control a being as powerful as the shadow demon leopard, its spiritual attack is considered extremely powerful. But unfortunately, it met Qi Ling, and this was its biggest miscalculation. When it comes to what Qi Ling's strongest is, maybe different people will have different answers, because most of them have only seen a certain part of Qi Ling's strength and cannot have an overview of all his abilities. And if Qi Ling is asked to say it himself, what is his strongest point? It's his mental defense ability. To be precise, Qi Ling's ability is not considered defensive at all, but is immune to all negative mental and soul states. The Dragon Emperor's innate passive skill, Immortal Dragon Soul. As the noblest dragon clan, the Dragon Emperor possesses the toughest dragon soul. This makes any attack targeting the soul and spirit ineffective, because the dignity of the dragon clan cannot be violated. And this is because Qi Ling has not yet awakened the dragon soul. Once he reaches the 70th level of Soul Saint and can use the martial soul avatar, he can also use the dragon soul to fight back, which will become his trump card. After discovering that his mental attack was ineffective against Qi Ling, the hundred-eyed demon king's countless big eyes suddenly showed doubts. This must have been the first time he encountered such a situation. Haha, you ugly guy, you are unlucky to meet me. If you have any other skills, just use them. If I say no, today I will be considered. Qi Ling was shouting proudly to the hundred-eyed demon king, when suddenly a spear stabbed out from the side, almost killing him. No way. Qi Ling looked aside in shock and found that it was exactly what he thought. Bei Na was controlled by the hundred-eyed demon king. Qi Ling, hurry up, get away. I can't control my body. Bei Na tried hard to control her body, but under the control of the hundred-eyed demon king, he stabbed Qi Ling with a spear. At the same time, the soul beasts controlled by the hundred-eyed demon king did not let go of this excellent opportunity. They emerged from all directions and pounced on Qi Ling, intending to cooperate with Bei Na in a pincer attack. Qi Ling could clearly feel that the countless eyes of the hundred-eyed demon king were full of unstoppable pride and ridicule to Qi Ling, as if he felt that Qi Ling had been pushed into a desperate situation. Qi Ling dodged one of Bei Na's attacks, took a few steps back, and withdrew from her attack range, and then said helplessly, "Oh, look at you, girl, you are also a god of war after all, how could you be attacked by such a big eyeball? If you take control, won't you be embarrassed?" Bei Na felt that her face was turning red with embarrassment. She had no choice but to do it. The mental aspect was not the area that fighting god Wuhun was good at. It could even be said to be her nemesis. It was inevitable that she would be attacked. Big eyes, don't be complacent. I told you that if you meet me, Qi Ling, you will be unlucky today. Qi Ling said, I only need one move to solve your current situation. Do you believe it or not? Quote. From the eyes of the hundred-eyed demon king, Qi Ling clearly saw the word, bragging, so he said helplessly, oh, after all, he is just a big-eyed man, but he is short-sighted. Well, let me show you today. Alright. Dragon Emperor. Possessed. As the Dragon Emperor came again, Qi Ling did only one thing to get rid of the predicament in front of him. The first soul skill, Nine Heavens Dragon Roar. The previously evolved Nine Heavens Dragon Yin has the function of eliminating negative mental effects, and at the same time can make people high-spirited and radiant. And now, this melodious dragon roar is announcing the death of the hundred-eyed demon king. Awash in the sound waves of the dragon's roar, Bei Na and the soul beasts seemed to have woken up from a dream, waking up from the control of the hundred-eyed demon king. Those soul beasts were originally some weak soul beasts living underground. At this time, they finally got free. Of course, they had to escape immediately. Soon, only the hundred-eyed demon king, Qi Ling, and Bei Na were left in the entire underground space. Bei Na had just been punished by the hundred-eyed demon king, and she was naturally very angry at this time. She shouted at the hundred-eyed demon king, "You are so annoying, you will use such despicable methods, I have to teach you a lesson." Martial soul fighting god, possessed. Bei Na's fighting spirit is quite unique, because after being possessed by it, it can actually change the appearance of the character to a great extent. Bei Na, who was originally in the shape of a child, immediately entered the adult stage after being possessed by the spirit. Appearance changed significantly. And her biggest change was neither her sudden increase in height nor her long hair that almost reached the ground, but her figure. You can imagine the shock of watching a person go from a to E in an instant. Oh my god, Bei Na, your martial spirit is definitely the dream of countless women. Qi Ling's eyes widened and he stared at a certain part of her body, unable to take his eyes away. Of course, my fighting god spirit not only has superb fighting ability, but also has very special abilities, and its spirit ring. Bei Na was proudly introducing the power of her spirit, but she discovered that Qi Ling's eyes were staring at his chest. Hate, where are you looking? Bei Na angrily covered her chest, then pointed at Qi Ling with the spear in her hand, as if to say, if you look again, I will dig out your eyes. Sorry, I didn't mean to do it. After all, a man can't help himself when he sees such a scene. Qi Ling withdrew his gaze in embarrassment. The hundred-eyed demon king on the side felt that he had been left out. When had he ever been so angry? So he immediately became restless. Since his evil eye was useless, the hundred-eyed demon king changed his attack method, and saw countless tentacles sprouting from his disgusting fleshy balls, waving them around in a disgusting way. Countless tentacles waved towards the two of them. Qi Ling didn't waste any time and immediately used his third soul skill. The golden holy dragon armor covered his whole body to protect him. It wasn't that Qi Ling was worried about how strong the attack power of this tentacle was. After all, looking at this big meatball, it didn't look like he was good at hand-to-hand combat. Qi Ling summoned the golden armor just because the tentacles were so disgusting. Just imagine if these slimy tentacles were to wrap around a person's body and circle around a few times, it would really make it impossible for them to eat. Seeing Qi Ling summoning the golden holy dragon armor, Bei Na smiled and said, "So you can also transform. But your transformation doesn't seem to be very good. It's just an extra armor, there are no other changes at all. What can you tell just by looking at me? You won't know until you try it whether my transformation is great or not." Qi Ling laughed, making a bit of a joke. But unfortunately, Bei Na said happily at this time, "Okay. Then I want to see what is so powerful about your transformation." Alas, a girl who is too innocent will have a lot less fun. If you can't see the shy look of a girl, what's the point of life? The two of them were just playing around, facing the attack of the hundred-eyed demon king without hesitation. The underground space is so big. As soon as the tentacles of the hundred-eyed demon king come out, they directly occupy all the evasive attacks, making it inevitable for people to avoid them. With the monster's urine properties, if it gets entangled by its tentacles, it will never get over so easily. It will probably still be controlled by it, so the best way is to prevent its tentacles from touching the other side, people. HMPH. If it were just an attack like this, I wouldn't be hit again. Bei Na said, lifting the spear in her hand. After she transformed, the spear also changed greatly. Not only did it become larger in size, making it more suitable for her current body shape, but the patterns on the spear were also clearer and clearer, making it barely recognizable. It seems to be some mysterious inscriptions. This spear seems to have evolved to a higher level along with Bei Na's evolution. Extremely powerful energy can be felt from it, and in conjunction with Bei Na herself, its power is greatly increased. Heaven and Earth Shatterer. After becoming bigger, Bei Na waved the spear in her hand and waved it around her body, using the skills she had used before. The tentacles surrounding Bei Na originally occupied almost all the space, but with this wave, they were all cut into two pieces, falling to the ground and twisting and struggling. Seeing Bei Na take action again, Qi Ling also noticed some differences. The heaven and earth shattering she used this time, whether it was speed, strength, or attack range, was greatly improved compared to before. It was like both people use the same thing. Of course, Bei Na is still the same Bei Na. The only thing that has changed is her body. It seems that after the transformation, her attributes and skills will be enhanced. Qi Ling, it's your turn. After dealing with the group of tentacles on her side, Bei Na proudly put her spear on the ground and looked at Qi Ling and said, "Okay, let me show off my skills." Qi Ling said with a smile. "I don't have a cool weapon like Bei Na, all I have is a pair of iron fists." So Qi Ling raised his fist again, preparing to challenge the countless tentacles. But he didn't want to stick something so disgusting on himself, so there was only one choice left. Belong fist. Sky shock. Different from Bei Na's clean slash, Qi Ling's Tyrannosaurus punch was struck, and the surrounding space immediately shook violently, and all the tentacles stopped in the air. As the vibration increased, all the tentacles were shattered into several pieces, scattered on the ground like a puddle of minced meat. The hundred-eyed demon king was severely injured and made a strange sound, and then more tentacles stretched out and swarmed towards the two of them. No matter how the two attacked these tentacles, they seemed to be endless and kept popping up. If this continues, no matter how hard they attack, they will be unable to defeat the hundred-eyed demon king. This can't go on like this. Qi Ling, is there anything you can do? Bei Na said with a frown. The hundred-eyed demon king, the hundred-eyed demon king. Qi Ling thought to himself, I seem to know how to deal with it. This 100-eyed demon king should belong to a mutant species of a soul beast called the one-eyed monster. In addition, it has lived for enough years, so it has its current appearance. Originally, this kind of soul beast could only maintain its life by parasitizing other types of soul beasts and using radio waves to interfere with the other's thinking to a certain extent. But I didn't expect that there would be an existence like the 100-eyed demon king that could control so many soul beasts. Thinking of this, Qi Ling released the possession of his martial soul. Bei Na was surprised when she saw it. Qi Ling, how did you release the transformation? At worst, I won't laugh at you. Just don't think too hard. Bah, you have such a crow's mouth, everyone in the world can't think of it, and I can't think of it either. Qi Ling said, I just want to try how to deal with it. Later, Qi Ling summoned another martial spirit of his, the Blood Demon Emperor. The first soul skill, Blood Demon's 100 Split Claw. Qi Ling used his Blood Demon's 100 Split Claw, and the shadow of the claws covered the sky towards the 100-eyed demon king, breaking off its tentacles one after another. With such a large number of attacks, Qi Lingman thought that he could absorb a lot of soul power, but to his surprise, he only absorbed an extremely rare amount of soul power. And those tentacles, just like before, after being cut off, more tentacles will grow out, seemingly endless. Sure enough, it's just as I guessed. Qi Ling said to Bei Na while avoiding the attack of the 100-eyed demon king, this is going to be troublesome. What's the trouble? Is this guy difficult to deal with? Bei Na cut off a large piece of tentacles, but it didn't help the situation at all. Stop trying, Bei Na, even if I tire you to death, you still can't cut off all these tentacles. Qi Ling said, because what we cut down is not an entity at all, but an illusion created by it. What? But I obviously have the feel to chop things. How could this happen? Bei Na said in disbelief. This is because this kind of soul beast has taken the illusion to the extreme and formed a special energy. Qi Ling explained, combined with its own soul power, it creates a kind of illusion that is between illusion and entity, between existence. If you still find it unbelievable, then take a look at the tentacles that we cut off. Did they disappear when you weren't paying attention? After hearing this, Benna looked around, and was surprised to find that the countless tentacles she had just cut off had actually disappeared. Huh, really, how could this happen? Bei Na frowned and said, then Qi Ling, what should we do? Now there is only one way to defeat it, but... Qi Ling smiled like a weasel who stole a chicken, I need you to make a sacrifice, Bei Na. Sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice? Bei Na puffed up her chest and said, don't worry, Qi Ling, as the god of war, I will not be afraid of any sacrifice no matter what it is. Okay, he is indeed a hero among women, worthy of the name of god of war. Qi Ling gave a thumbs up and said, in that case, Bei Na, I'd like to trouble you and go into this thing's belly. A silent silence spread between the two of them. Do you want me to get inside that thing? Bei Na opened her eyes wide and looked at the monster with countless tentacles that seemed to have disgusting blood in front of her. Yes, you can only defeat it by getting into its belly. Qi Ling affirmed. But, Bei Na didn't know what to say. This was too much for a girl to bear. Although the 100-eyed demon king has mutated, its essence will not change. Inside its body, there must be the most important crystal nucleus. Qi Ling said, as long as it is broken, the 100-eyed demon king will lose everything. The power is at your disposal. And at that time, we can deal a fatal blow to it from the outside. This is a task that must be completed by two people, because if it cannot be killed in time, it will generate a strange illusory energy which will destroy it. The people inside are wrapped around it and become its new core. Hearing this, Bei Na couldn't help but shudder. How could she actually become the core of such a disgusting monster? Even if she dies, Bei Na cannot accept this kind of thing. But, Qi Ling, can you go inside it and I'll give it a fatal blow outside? Bei Na finally struggled. My attack power is very strong. I can definitely kill it with one blow. It's a pity. Although I also want to do this, Bei Na, can you resist its evil eye? Qi Ling asked. Bei Na was immediately speechless. If she had been able to resist, she wouldn't have been attacked in the first place. Damn it, I just went into its belly. What's there to be afraid of? I'm the god of fighting. Finally, Bei Na made up her mind and said, Qi Ling, can I trust you? Of course, I promise you. Qi Ling said affirmatively. Bei Na didn't know what the use of Qi Ling's guarantee was, but she felt relieved. There seems to be a strange magic power about this man that makes people can't help but choose to believe in him. Okay, I'll risk my life then. How should I get in? Bei Na raised the spear in her hand and said as if she was ready to die. I will clean its tentacles later. Bena, just take the opportunity to rush to it, break through its defense, and get in. Qi Ling said, remember, the time is very short, you have to do it, be prepared. Don't worry, since I have to do it, I will never let it slip. Bei Na said. So the two immediately began a life-threatening cooperation. Qi Ling struck out with the Tyrannosaurus fist and wiped out all the tentacles in front of him. Before new tentacles were generated, Bei Na immediately rushed towards the 100-eyed Demon King. Dragon Fang Strike. Sky Strike. The spear in Bei Na's hand suddenly burst into bright light, and her whole body turned into a sharp blade, stabbing at the 100-eyed Demon King. The disgusting body of the 100-eyed Demon King instantly turned into nothing when it came into contact with the spear in Bei Na's hand, forming an astonishingly large hole. And after Bei Na made mental preparations again, she dove into the body of the 100-eyed Demon King. In less than a moment, the body of the 100-eyed Demon King had returned to its original state, and countless tentacles emerged again. Monster, tentacles, slime, magical girl. Qi Ling said to himself, wow. This is really a bad combination of words. It always reminds people of some scenes that are not suitable for children. There is no time to think about it anymore. Qi Ling must start preparing now, otherwise Bei Na will really be ruined. In order to deal with the 100-eyed Demon King at once, Qi Ling had to use his strongest attack, so he released the Blood Demon Emperor Spirit and summoned the Dragon Emperor Spirit again. The third soul skill, Golden Holy Dragon Armor. Super. Dragon Fist. Qi Ling, possessed by the golden armor, began to gather all his strength, planning to make the strongest blow. The reason why the Golden Holy Dragon Armor was summoned was not only to increase the soul power, but more importantly, Qi Ling had to resist the tentacle attack of the 100-eyed Demon King before he accumulated soul power and Bei Na successfully attacked. Otherwise, it was likely to cause the accumulation of soul power failed. Seeing countless tentacles wrapped around his golden armor, although he would not be hurt, Qi Ling still felt a strange feeling in his heart. Damn it, am I the protagonist of this drama? After waiting for an unknown amount of time, when Qi Ling had completed the charging of Super Tyrannosaurus Fist, the 100-eyed Demon King still had no abnormal reaction, indicating that Bei Na's attack had not been successful. Just when he thought he was really going to become the female protagonist in the story, the 100-eyed Demon King suddenly reacted. All its tentacles stopped moving, and at the same time, thousands of golden lights radiated from all its eyes. Holy shit, how did this girl get so loud? Qi Ling didn't care to complain. He had been waiting for his fist for a long time, just for this moment. He no longer hesitated and punched out. Super Dragon Fist. With an unparalleled punch, the tentacles all over the 100-eyed Demon King's body instantly turned into flying ash. His whole body continued to expand, and then made a loud noise and exploded into pieces of flesh all over the sky. And in this bloody rain of flesh, Bei Na's figure reappeared and hugged Qi Ling. Qi Ling. I succeeded, I succeeded. Yes, yes, you succeeded. It's amazing. Qi Ling reluctantly reached out to touch Bei Na's head, but after the transformation, Bei Na was already taller than Qi Ling, and he didn't succeed that day. After the death of the 100-eyed Demon King, a black soul ring appeared from his remains. Judging from the quality of this soul ring, this 100-eyed Demon King is at least 30,000 years old. No wonder it has such ability that it requires Qi Ling and Bei Na to join forces to defeat it. Is this the soul ring you want? With such a high age, can you absorb it? Bei Na looked at the dark soul ring and asked curiously. Don't worry, I thought its age was too low. Qi Ling said with a smile. He was wondering, if his third soul ring absorbed a 100,000-year soul ring, could he also obtain a crystal soul ring? Now it seems that there is really little hope for this matter. Even if there is a 100,000-year soul ring, Qi Ling does not think that he can successfully absorb it, because of such things as rebirth from broken bones. He has long been in the process of gradually becoming a real dragon. I've done it before, and it won't have any effect if I try it again. Okay, then you can feel free to absorb it here. It's so hidden here, no one should disturb you. Baina said, I'm going to report the news to my friends quickly, and clean up my body by the way. It's bloody. I'm vomiting, it's so disgusting. Qi Ling couldn't help laughing at this time. You silly girl, take a closer look, do you still have those dirty things on your body? After listening to Qi Ling's words, Baina lowered her head and looked at her body, but was surprised to find that the blood, flesh, and dirt were all gone, including the ground, which was now clean. What the hell is going on? Where have all those things gone? Baina asked in surprise. The tentacles of the 100-eyed demon king are produced by hallucinations, and its body is naturally produced by hallucinations. Qi Ling said, fake things are confused with real ones, and they seem to be illusions but not illusions. This thing is more powerful than you think. It's just that it's unlucky. Just bumped into us. As long as Fan Keeling doesn't have the passive ability of the Dragon Emperor, it's definitely the two of them who are here today. The power of this 100-eyed demon king has not yet been demonstrated at all. Then, Qi Ling pointed to the ground, and Baina took a closer look and saw an ugly little monster lying there, with a big one eye occupying most of the body, which looked funny and ridiculous. What is this? Baina asked curiously. This is the true form of the 100-eyed demon king, and everything else is just fantasy. Qi Ling said. Baina quickly believed Qi Ling's statement, because the black soul ring appeared from this inconspicuous little soul beast. It can only be said that there are many wonders in the world. After being surprised, Baina said goodbye to Qi Ling again before leaving and said reluctantly, Qi Ling, you said, we will meet again, right? Of course, Baina, we are destined. Even if you don't want to see me, we will definitely meet again. Qi Ling said with a smile. Yagami and 8 demons are entangled in numerology. This is not nonsense. After getting this answer, Baina left with satisfaction, while Qi Ling summoned his Blood Demon Emperor Soul Seal and at the same time stretched out his hand towards the Black Soul Ring. The expected extreme pain struck again. The absorption of the Blood Demon Emperor's Soul Ring seemed to be a struggle with life every time. We must surrender this soul ring ourselves, or die. Lying on the ground in pain, Qi Ling's expression had long been deformed. The 100-eyed demon king was completely dead in Qi Ling's hands. One can imagine his hatred for him, and it was naturally impossible to let him go like this. Qi Ling also passed out in this huge pain, but his body was still fighting against this force, and he didn't know how long it would last. On the other side, after leaving the cave, Baina scampered towards the depths of the forest. Not long after, she came to a lake and stopped. If Qi Ling sees this lake, it will definitely look very familiar, because this is the place where Azure Bull Python and Titan Giant Ape brought Xiao Wu, the most famous lake in the Star Forest. And now that Baina is here, it's not difficult to guess who her friend is. It was the forest overlords, the Azure Bull Python and the Titan Giant Ape, Daming and Erming. Hey, Dehei, Niu, where are you? I'm back. Baina stood by the lake and shouted towards the lake. After hearing Baina's voice, not long after, the center of the lake started to stir, and a huge cow's head rose from it and swam towards this side. At the same time, there was a commotion in the forest, and a huge chimpanzee pushed through the trees and walked out of the forest. Baina, you are back, are you not injured? The Azure Bull Python looked at Baina and asked with concern. It's okay, Niu. Not only was I not injured, but I also killed the 100-eyed demon king. Baina said proudly. What, you actually killed the 100-eyed demon king? The Azure Bull Python was shocked when he heard the news. He knew how difficult that guy was. Although he and Erming were not afraid of it, they couldn't do anything about it. Who thought that Baina could actually kill it? This is really beyond my expectation. Of course I didn't do it alone. Niu, Dehei, let me tell you, I met a super powerful person. Baina said very happily, and then told about Qi Ling. Come out. Seeing Baina's happy expression, Azure Bull Python and Titan Giant Ape couldn't help but think of Xiao Wu's previous appearance. At that time, she was in human form and happily told them about a person like this. How is it? He is very powerful, isn't he? After finishing speaking, Baina looked at the Azure Bull Python with great anticipation, as if waiting for his comment. Well, it is indeed amazing. From your description, there is only one person in my mind who has such great ability at this age. Azure Bull Python said slowly. That man once took a punch from my second brother and even fought it back. What, knocked you back Dehe, and only with one punch? Baina looked at the Titan ape in surprise and asked, Dehe, is this true? The Titan ape nodded extremely reluctantly. After all, this was indeed a fact. He was forced back by Qi Ling's punch and even changed his escape route. Baina naturally knows how powerful the Titan ape is. Not to mention a soul master level person, even if a titled Duluo comes, there is nothing he can do to it, because it is the top soul beast. Oh my god, I can't even imagine that I can repel Dehe. Baina pouted and said, so, Niu, the person you mentioned is more powerful, probably even more powerful than Qi Ling. Quote. Hearing Qi Ling's name, Azure Bull Python was stunned and said, huh. How could there be such a coincidence? The person I'm talking about happens to be named Qi Ling. Oh, really? What a coincidence, Baina suddenly said happily. It seems that powerful people have the same level of talent in choosing names. But the Qi Ling I'm talking about, his martial spirit is even more handsome. I've never seen a martial spirit like his. He is a mighty and domineering dragon, and he can also make dragon roars. The more the Azure Bull Python heard, the more something was wrong. Isn't this clearly a person? This boy is really not ashamed. He just offended our little dance sister, but now he's going to offend Baina again. All the good things in the world are shared by him alone. But since Baina didn't know about it yet, she didn't want to point it out. Alas, I really don't know what she and Sister Xiaowu will do then. Tianqing Niubo's worries were obviously not unnecessary, and they were even less worrying, because it was obvious that they were not the only girls who liked Qi Ling. In the cave of the Hundred-Eyed Demon King, Qi Ling absorbed the soul ring of the Hundred-Eyed Demon King, and his body gradually changed. Some shadow-like existences slowly spread out from his body and wrapped around him. This is a rather strange phenomenon, because things like shadow can only exist with the help of light, and it is an existence that has no entity and cannot be captured. But now, these shadows have clearly become entities, an independent existence separated from the light, just like the shadow of a person breaks away from the person and starts to act alone. These strange shadows, like ropes, entangled Qi Ling in circles, surging continuously, and as their number continued to increase, they gradually enveloped Qi Ling's body. After an unknown amount of time, Qi Ling finally finished subduing the Hundred-Eyed Demon King and eliminated its remaining consciousness in one fell swoop. Countless shadows, like thick smoke blown by the wind, gradually dissipated from his body and turned into a burst of special energy that re-entered his body. Qi Ling also opened his eyes at this time. What was quite strange was that his eyes turned completely black at this time, with no white of his eyes visible. This Hundred-Eyed Demon King is really wonderful. I am really lucky to get its soul ring, Qi Ling said to himself, and the strange black color in his eyes gradually faded, revealing his clear eyes. Then Qi Ling stretched out his hand, and the Blood Demon Emperor's soul seal lit up, accompanied by 3 soul rings, 2 purple and 1 black, emitting a strange light. Third soul skill, Nightmare comes. As Qi Ling's mind turned, the black soul ring lit up and gradually disappeared into Qi Ling's body. The third soul skill obtained by Qi Ling is closely related to the Hundred-Eyed Demon King. After he uses this soul summoning skill, he can summon a large dark shadow to cover the enemy. These shadowy fogs are the essence of this soul calling skill, and they have very powerful effects. First of all, it is not an entity, so it cannot be dispersed or destroyed, and can always remain on the field. In the thick shadow and fog, a person can only see clearly what is a palm away from him. This distance is about the same as that of a blind man. Not only is he unable to defend well, but he is also unable to launch an effective attack. Because of this characteristic, Nightmare Advent has become the most powerful control-type magical skill even though it has no control ability. Of course, the effect of this soul-calling skill is far more than that, because these thick shadows and fog are themselves a kind of energy. What special abilities they contain need to be gradually explored by Qi Ling in the future. Squeak. At this moment, a mouse probably saw that there was no movement here, so it ran out to look for food and quickly ran past the corner. Qi Ling's thoughts moved, and the thick shadow fog quickly enveloped the mouse according to his thoughts. And when the shadow fog dispersed again, the mouse had its eyes wide open and died with extreme fear. The first effect of nightmare arrival, it can inflict fearful mental attacks on enemies shrouded in shadow and fog. Anyone who is hit by this attack will have their attributes reduced, or even frightened to death. Moreover, because of the characteristics of the shadow fog itself, unless the enemy has the means to resist mental attacks, there is no way to avoid this negative emotion. This soul skill has an even more evil and terrifying ability. Qi Ling hesitated again and again, not knowing whether he should use this ability. After all, if you use this trick, you will definitely be regarded as a treacherous and evil person, attracting the disgust of all righteous people, and even being hunted down. Forget it, I have to make sure how effective this ability is. At worst, I won't use it anymore. Qi Ling made up his mind. Immediately, he manipulated the thick shadow mist, separated an extremely fine wisp, and penetrated into the mouse's ear. Immediately afterwards, the mouse that was originally frightened to death actually opened its eyes again and stood up. It's just that his eyes have lost their vitality and are filled with only darkness. The second effect of nightmare arrival. Any creature killed in the thick shadow fog can use these shadow energies to control their corpses. The more powerful the creature, the more energy is required to control it, and the weaker creatures can even control multiple ones at once. Just like these rats, if Qi Ling is willing now, he can form an army of undead rats. Damn it, I don't want to change my profession from a dragon warrior to a necromancer, and then be hunted down by people across the continent. Qi Ling frowned and said, this ability should be temporarily sealed. It must not be used unless it is absolutely necessary. After putting away his soul skills, Qi Ling stood up and moved his body, then crawled out of the cave. In the dark cave, Qi Ling couldn't tell whether it was day or night, or how long it took him to absorb the soul ring. After he came to the forest at this time, it was a big morning. When the sun had just risen, many soul beasts came out of the caves and started to move. After seeing Qi Ling's figure, they hid again. Hey, I don't know what day it is now. Have Shaoxin and the others finished fighting against the Royal Dou team? Qi Ling thought to himself, but for some reason, he always had an ominous premonition in his heart. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.